Yeah, indeed.
Oh my God, Jay, we have babies!
We've been preparing for this. It's go time. All right, this is the second video in the boa breeding series. I'll leave either a card and or a link in the description to the first video that discusses everything up until the point of birth. In this video, we'll be discussing what happens after your boa gives birth. We will break this down into 4 sections. They are preparations, birth and the first 10 to 14 days, the first several months, and the first year. So without further ado, let's hop right on in. In this section, we'll talk about the preparations that you need to take before the birth even occurs. Boas give birth to a significant litter of babies, litter because of giving live birth. Um, it's not unheard of for boas to give birth to north of 20 babies. In some recent posts I've seen in my Facebook community groups, people are posting 40 plus babies coming out of their boa. So the question is, where are you going to keep these babies? Me personally, doing micro scale breeding, I use the Reptile Basics VE6 rack system, utilizing the 23 quart tubs and 11 quart tubs, if I recall correctly. You can also build your own rack, which I have done as well, or on a larger scale or a more professional scale, you can get a rack system from Freedom Breeder or ARS. Both are kind of the benchmark rack systems that most large scale breeders use. Whether buying a plastic tote system, a commercial rack system, or building your own, you want to make sure that you have the racks set up, uh, completed, built, and all the parameters, meaning temperature, humidity, everything is spot checked prior to the birth of the baby boas. Along with where you're going to keep the baby boas, funny enough, baby boas need to eat. I typically go with frozen thawed hopper or fuzzy mice, depending on the size of the baby. Uh, but baby boas, newborn baby boas, could be stubborn. Um, and after a couple attempts at trying to feed, you may have to get a live rodent. Do you have a source to get these live rodents? That's a question you need to ask yourself. Also, uh, I tend to feed the newborn babies once weekly for the first several months and then stretch that out to once every 10 days. So, doing some quick math, if you have 20 babies over the course of the first 10 weeks, that's 200 hopper mice. Are you prepared to make that financial investment and or have a place to store those frozen rodents without your spouse, utterly hating you? Another consideration, as silly as it sounds, is paper towels and cleaning supplies. I keep my newborns on paper towels. It's easier for maintaining sterility or sanitary environment. I'm able to see when they defecate significantly easier, and it's just easier for me to monitor the babies. But again, using the thought of 20 babies, going through uh, paper towel changes. I cycle out paper towels at least once a day, sometimes more, depending or not if they urinated or defecated, and and then cleaning as well. So the disinfectants you use to clean your environment. that is just magnified by the amount of babies as well as the amount of changing of the paper towels. So take that into consideration as well. Do you have enough paper towels, and are you prepared to chew through a ton of them? All right. So mama has given birth. Now what? So the first thing you want to do is remove the mother from the enclosure and isolate her into a separate container, preferably with warm water. This will allow her to rehydrate, soak, and just really get any of the birthing fluids off of her. Then the next part, I would recommend using gloves. Um, just because you'll be getting literally and figuratively your hands dirty. Regardless of wearing gloves or not, you want to disinfect your hands. Um, at this point, you want to go in and take the babies and put them into a larger size tub. At this time, I try to lightly clean them off. Don't go overboard, but move all of them into one or two larger size tubs. Whether it's one or two will depend on the size of the tub as well as the quantity in the litter. At this time, you also want to observe the non-glamorous side of breeding and see if there are any stillborn boas or unfertilized eggs, also kind of referred to as slugs. Again, this happens especially with first and second time moms. It's just kind of the nature of breeding. Now that mama and babies are both out of the enclosure and isolated, break down the entire enclosure, remove all the substrate, do your normal thorough deep cleaning. It's also a good idea at this time to start thawing out a nice large rat for mama. And then after the cleaning is done, um, you know, rebuild the enclosure as you normally would, and bring mom back in and see if she'll take that rat. Chances are she'll be good and hungry after all that hard work, and that's a solid reward for her. At this point, it's a great time to take a nice deep breath, relax, and kind of admire the litter that you just helped bring into the world. Um, Again, take the time to enjoy it. It's super cool feeling. Especially the first time you come into your room and see baby boas, it's a really amazing feeling. Take the time and enjoy it. Over the next 7 to 10 days, the babies will all shed out, and they typically shed in mass, within a day or two of each other. And once all the shedding is complete, I separate out each individual baby into its own tub. Each tub is pretty minimalistic. It has a dampened paper towel as the substrate, if you will, along with a water dish. Like I said earlier, I try to keep that paper towel, somewhat moist. I change it out at least daily or more often as I come in and check and see if there's some sort of mess there, or if it's just mangled up. After 2 weeks is when I begin offering meals. Um, again, I start out with frozen thawed. Um, I approach it like kind of a typical feeding, maybe a little bit more sensitive. I present the mouse to the boa with some slight vibrations to try to simulate a live rodent. Um, Again, don't go overboard with it. They are small little snakes. So some slight vibrations. I do this for 30 seconds, maybe a minute. If they strike and take it, great. Sometimes that doesn't occur. I just leave the rodent in the enclosure and I shut it. I check back in a couple hours later. If it's still there, I repeat the process. If that doesn't work, I just leave it overnight. And when I check in the morning, if the rodent is still there, then I discard the rodent, change the paper towels, etc. I should note that I also do not try to reintroduce food until the next week. Again, there's no real rush to this. Again, it's a delicate kind of balance. Um, I wouldn't attempt moving over to live until the baby hasn't eaten for many weeks, potentially over a month before trying to introduce a live feeding. Over the next couple months, I focus on several things. The first is determining the sex of each baby. Now, you can do this a couple different ways. There's a probing method that I do not utilize. What I tend to do is I get the baby and I hold it in my hand, and just starting at the cloaca, I pinched the area at the cloaca between my index finger and thumb, and I apply a bit of pressure and I pull it towards the tip of the tail. In doing so, I'm looking to feel two small BB-like structures. Um, and if I do feel those structures, it is a male. It is the hemipenes. If I do not feel those structures, it is a female. So then I mark that down and I put the snake away. I do this several times over the next couple months, just to try to check to make sure I was correct. I try to do this blind, so I'm not giving myself false positives. And after 2 or 3 times of doing this, I'm pretty confident of the sex of the animal. Chances are you're not going to get this spot on your first try. Just keep working at it. It'll come to you. Again, once you feel it 1 or 2 times, you're like, oh, I get it. Like it's pretty obvious at that point. Probably the more challenging thing you're doing at this time as well is determining what morph you've got. If you're working with a single gene animal or a simple recessive, maybe it's a bit easier. Like if you're working with, a visual albino with a het albino, you'll see from the offspring, visual albinos or everything will be 100% het, which won't take a heck of a lot of effort on your part to determine which is which. When you start stacking genes and you have genes that um, work differently combined with other genes, you're really going to have to spend some time and determine what you got. And like before, this is going to come with practice. I am by no means an expert. I try to do my best, and then if I have some questions, I reach out to the greater community or fellow breeders to help with what they think they see. So now once you determine the sex and the morph, it's time to do some research. I'm assuming that you're planning on selling at least some of these babies, so it's up to you to determine the price. What I typically do is go to Morph Market. I peruse the ads looking to see folks that are selling similar morphs as the ones that I have, if there's any historical sales, along with the current state of the industry and the market conditions. And then it's up to you to determine a reasonable price for these animals. You can price something as high or as low as you want to be, uh, but the reality is something is only as valuable as something as someone's willing to pay for it. So keep that in mind, as well as not being the lowest guy on the block. All this ultimately does is tank the overall market pool by you undercutting everybody else. So, pricing considerations should not be taken lightly. Um, you want to sell your animal, you want a fair price, but we also want to look as a whole. There's a saying that when the tide rises, so do all the ships. So we want to keep that in the back of our minds. I typically don't like posting animals for sale or sharing animals for sale until they have about 10 meals in them. So that's approximately 10 weeks plus the first 2 weeks after birth. So I'm not looking to start moving these animals for the first 3 months. I also want to know that during this time, I'm personally documenting um, the items that the baby boas are eating in gram weight, as well as frequency, and if they took the meal or refused the meal. So this portion of the the boa afterbirth care is a lot of time spent researching and documenting. This part is arguably the hardest part of the afterbirth care, and that is switching your hat from being a reptile keeper to being a business owner. How are you actually going to sell these animals? Friends and family? Chances are that well runs dry pretty quick. Local reptile expos? Good idea. Regional reptile expos? Okay. Something more on a national level? Are you going to do online platforms like Morph Market? There's a bunch of different avenues to sell these animals. All come with pros and cons and different levels of commitment. You also got to note at this time, you got to become a photographer, a social media personality, a social media um, market manager. You got to become a salesperson, potentially a shipping department, as well as a reptile keeper. There are a ton of things to consider. I personally really like Jason's Exotic Reptiles. It's a great YouTube channel. Jason has a great personality, tremendous breeder in his own right. Uh, somebody I inspire to be. But the really unique thing that Jason brings is he goes into pretty in-depth discussions on his channel about the business side of being a boa breeder. I personally find that really fascinating. He gives a great lens into um, the marketing aspect, how to price things. There's one video that I've watched several times that I have flagged that really breaks down the cost of raising a boa and things to consider when you come into pricing it. Again, take a look at his channel. Links down below. It's a world worth of knowledge. Another consideration to take as well, earlier in the video we said, it's funny, like snakes like to eat. Well, as these babies continue to eat, they will continue to grow. What if you don't sell all these babies? Do you have the racks to keep them in? They will grow out the small tubs to the medium tubs. Do you have enclosures? Um, as they continue to grow, they will eat larger and larger rats. Do you have the funds to support that diet? At this point, we really need to look at ourselves, preferably prior to getting into breeding, but especially now. Is this something that you are prepared to take on? Again, it's one thing to see 20 babies in small 11-quart tubs. Yeah, but at the end of 2 years or 3 years, you will have sub-adult boas, and all of a sudden you have 20 of them. What are you going to do with that? Again, it's up to us to really think about this before we just dive into breeding just to do it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to make it clear, this is the way I do things. Um, Boa breeding, there is certainly not one way to do it. There are tons of ways to do it. Use my video as a research tool. Search other videos out. Do some reading. Again, I talked about the complete Boa Constrictor book before from Vin Russo. Fantastic book. Again, do copious amounts of research before you just dive on into this. Take everything that you learned and see what works for you. I also want to take this time to state, you know, just because you keep a snake or a reptile, you do not have to breed them. Um, that jump is a significant commitment. I just, I beg you to really think about these type of things before lunging into breeding. We can keep animals and appreciate animals without having to force breeding. Um, but if you do it with the care and the rigor and the research that we've been talking about. Now, I'll also say, I mentioned it earlier as well, there is really no feeling quite like coming in and seeing baby boas. I mean, I have children. That was pretty spectacular as well. But coming in and seeing um, a bunch of babies sitting there with and you have that buzz of anticipation, and you start separating them, and you see all the different colors and all the different patterns. It's really a pretty awesome feeling. With all of this being said, please like, subscribe, and we can continue learning about boa constrictors, breeding, tarantulas, tegus, and all types of other cryptic creatures together. Until next time.